Hello and welcome back to Tales from Bjorn. Today we're talking about Agape Boarding School. This is episode 3. It's titled Browntown. Today we're going to be talking about the insane torture tool that Agape Boarding School staff would use on students. My name is Bjorn. I was a student at Agape Boarding School from 2009 until 2011. And today we are going to be talking about Browntown. Another tool in the torture box that staff members at Agape Boarding School would use on students was called Browntown. This form of punishment or torture has had many different names over the years, but during my time there it was called Browntown. Other staff members would call it orientation, which according to their own website, they claim to still have orientation going on. I would consider this to be the worst form of torture that staff members would use, besides restraint. Students in Browntown would wear a brown t-shirt, as these gentlemen right here on the floor are wearing. I can't tell if he's wearing a brown shirt or not. Normally, Browntown cycles would be 2 or more students. Looks like you have another one back here too. So you have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 students in Browntown at this time. This form of torture was known for extreme workouts, physical abuse, limited or no food, not being allowed to do schoolwork unless you were a student that was in Browntown for refusing to do schoolwork, and then you would be just isolated and forced to do schoolwork. And public humiliation. Students could spend anywhere from a few days to several weeks in Browntown. And the longest cycle I can remember was a month. These students were kept separate from the main student body. They had their own table. They sat in the front row of chapel. They had their own work crews, and they had their own shower bay. If there were any visitors, they would be hidden away in the depths of the school unless it was mealtime or chapel time. And then sometimes they would either be sprinkled around the rest of the student body, or they would just be sitting and eating at their table, and then they would leave again. During a workday, students in Browntown would either have their own work crews doing chores that were worse than the rest of the student body. If it was a rock hauling day, these students would be marched along the same route that the rest of the student body would be freely moving along. Sometimes they would be anchored along that route, picking weeds. These students also would be used for clearing the woods on the property, both clearing poison ivy or even to be made to perform exercises in the poison ivy. And then they would just be forced to live with the results of poison ivy, and it would go untreated and just cause more pain for the students. During a school day, these students would either be used to deep clean an area of the school that was deemed to be urgent, but mostly they would endure extreme workouts until failure. Running stairs, sprints in the gym, duck walking, and bear crawling extreme distances, bear crawling on hot cement or the darker colored tiles on the volleyball court. During these workouts, students would be denied bathroom breaks, denied water, and beaten if they collapsed or refused to go on. Even during these workouts, staff members would throw objects or outright strike students. If on the stairs, students would be thrown down them, both in the gym and volleyball court. They would throw balls at students performing exercises, both to try to trip the student or to just hurt the student by throwing it at their face or exposed skin. If they were outside working or performing the exercises outside, staff members would throw rocks or anything they could find at students. During the workouts, some staff members, while students were running, would come up and kick their legs out from under them, or kick them in the side of the leg, so they would be forced to do the exercise while injured. Since students in Browntown were separated from the main student body, there was a much higher likelihood of being restrained. I will be doing a separate video on the brutality of these so-called restraints at Agape Boarding School. In Browntown, you would be moved to a new shower bay with some or all of your stuff being moved. At times, only a small amount of your stuff. Say if they knew the amount of time they were going to have you there, whether it be a few days or a few weeks, they would move your belongings to your new bunk location, and then only the items they deemed you needed for Browntown would be moved to the Browntown shower bay. If all of your stuff was moved because they knew that you were going to be in Browntown for a long time, or they haven't decided how long, they would move all of your stuff there into a separate locker, and then only the items they thought you would need would be moved over to the Browntown staging area. Your locker and team number were linked to the bunk you were in the dorm room. During your time at Browntown, you would be moved to a bunk right in front of Robert Graves, who at the time ran the dorm room overnight, and it was located at the westernmost wall of the dorm room. These students would be woken up much earlier than the rest of the student body and would be sent to in Browntown. These students would be woken up earlier than the rest of the student body and would be sent to bed much later than the rest of the student body. In the morning, these students would either duck walk or bear crawl from their bunk location to their location in the shower bay. Even while using the stairs, the position of duck walk or bear crawl would be held going up and down, which going down would put you in a very dangerous situation, especially if a staff member decided they wanted to kick a student, which would happen regularly. At the end of the day, students would be made to duck walk or bear crawl from the shower bay to the racks. Depending on the whims of the staff member, the student would be made to quack like a duck or roar like a bear. Some days it would be a very direct route down the middle of the shower bay to the stairs to go upstairs to the dorm, or they would be forced to zigzag through the entire shower bay while duck walking or bear crawling. Sometimes students would be singled out to kick or strike the students in Browntown as they crawled or duck walked. And as they did, students were required to point and laugh at them. If you did not join in the laughter and pointing, you would join Browntown for the rest of the cycle. If you refused to kick or strike a student when told to by a staff member, you would be restrained on the spot and then thrown into Browntown for the remainder of the cycle as well. Not all staff members were allowed to run or watch Browntown. I believe that most, if not all, staff members that were not involved with Browntown knew what was going on, but they were either not trusted by the administration or they refused to take part in those things. During my time at Agape, only staff members that were used for restraints were allowed to be involved with Browntown, and this would include former students that became blue shirts or staff members, and a very small number of captains or red shirts were also used to run Browntown. There were additional things added to Browntown depending on the students in the cycle or the whims of staff members. This would include no shoes, no clothes, showering with the doors open, going to the bathroom with the doors open, limited sleep, and other creative forms of torture. Also, in the dorms, in the morning after you've made your bunk, you were made to be in this weird squatted duck walk position and held until they had you move. And then after you went upstairs and were waiting to go to bed, you were also required to be in those positions. Some nights, Robert Graves would take students to the gym to work them out himself, or also he would also beat, kick, or strike students that were refused or had to, or decided they needed to move because they were in a great amount of pain from holding that position for a while. So, yeah, that's pretty much an overall of what Browntown is or orientation is at Agape Boarding School. Thank you for watching. If you would subscribe, like this video, where my goal is to reach the most amount of people as I possibly can with these videos about this school. And further on in this project, we will be getting to both my personal stories and the personal stories of other people that were both at Agape while I was there, after me, and long before me. And hopefully this will branch out into some other schools that are directly tied to Agape, and then those that aren't tied to Agape, just to get the word out, because none of these kids should have been sent to schools like this. There's just too many less current temporary and long-term effects from the torture that these horrible fucking people do to children. So, thank you.